Hey, IT Nation, Sean Lardo here again with another installment of the Wise Up podcast, where we are here to talk to people that we bring on from inside and outside of the industry. The goal behind it all is for you to be able to garner some sort of education, whether it be professional or personal, in your life journey. I'm here with my favorite all-time co-host, handy dandy Matt Topper. How are you, Matt?
I'm good. Handy dandy again, man. We gotta get some like Blue's Clues sponsorship is what we need to do on this.
I'm working on that. Well, it's either that or if you talk to Dan Scott, it's getting Malort to sponsor. So I figure, I don't know.
Let's not do that.
I don't know. I think that'd be better in a way, but hey, whatever. Anyway, so how are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing very well. How are you?
I'm fantastic. We just wrapped up not too long ago, IT Nation Europe, which was great. I tell you what, it was my first time being in IT Nation in London. So it was quite the experience.
I had a conflict and was not there.
I know. I recall.
I heard it was good though.
I sent you to Chicago for CCF, so I missed that. So I'm sad that I missed it, but it was worth it. It was worth a miss. Is that that's not Dunkin' Donuts?
No, so it's not Dunkin' today. It's tea today.
Wow.
Didn't have time for Dunkin'. So normally when we're doing the afternoon recordings, and now we're showing behind the curtain, right? This is a morning recording. So morning is usually coffee at home. Afternoon is Dunkin' coffee.
Wow. I can't, at my age, I can't do coffee after a certain time where I don't sleep that night.
Well, some of us were not alive for the invention of IT.
Speaking of people that probably can't drink coffee after noon, our guest today is probably too old to do it as well.
Oh, perfect segue.
I'm sorry, Peter. But with that being said, let's bring on the recently crowned, promoted, whatever word we're going to use.
Crowned.
The Supreme Bean Roller of IT Nation, which is very exciting, by the way, for all of us. And you probably know him if you've seen him in space for his work with SLI. He speaks a lot on stage about business growth and scalability and everybody's favorite acronym, which is EBITDA. But let's bring on Peter Kujawa.
Hey, Sean. Hey, Matt. How are you guys doing
today? Peter.
And you're correct. I also can't drink coffee after noon, or I will not sleep. It's a mystery to me. My dad my dad, all of his life, even up in his later years, would have coffee, not decaf, but actual regular coffee as an after dinner drink. My dad, how are you not up till 5 a.m.? I don't get it.
It's a different breed of people. My best friend growing up, his uncle was the same way, but he's one of those guys that drinks a pot or two of coffee a day. I'm like, how do you?
It's crazy to me.
Even if you can, that can't be healthy.
Yeah, I drink way too much coffee, but I've got to stop it there. So I'm sure this is fascinating for the audience. They right now are saying, I'm so happy I tuned into this episode.
They are hitting the subscribe button just based on this discussion.
Type of witty banter that I look for on IT Nation podcast.
Everybody is actually, Peter, this has been nothing so far compared to some of the banter we've started off with. Sometimes it takes a left turn when it should go right. And then we get into the weeds with a conversation. It becomes a debate of dumb stuff like upstate New York, which we won't get into, Matt, but
let's not go there again.
We're not going there. So let's give some background on you, Peter. I mean, I kind of threw some stuff out with the intro, but recently took over all of IT Nation. So congratulations on that.
Yeah, thank you.
But you're not new to IT Nation on a couple fronts. Like you worked with us in IT Nation, but you also were an MSP as well. So if you can give some background on your journey, that'd be great.
Yeah, thanks. I attended IT Nation as an MSP leader. We were also in a peer group for a long time, about 9 years. So yeah, I took over an MSP back in 2010, and I've told the story a bunch of times, but we can get into a bit more detail on it than I normally can. But I came from outside the industry. Almost every guy who, man or woman who leads an MSP that I've talked to today, even today in 2025, most came out of the technical track in the industry. So most either started on their own or got together with a couple of other technical folks and started a business, hung a shingle. And built that business up and grew it and brought other leaders in and all of those type of things. I did not have that background. I'm the last person on earth you'd want to have touch your computer to fix anything. And so for me, I came in, I had a lot of professional leadership and a lot of and a background in regulated businesses. And the MSP that I took over in 2010 was about 60 to 70% of revenue from banks and credit unions. And so they were looking for two things with a new president. One was somebody who understood that world and could handle the regulations and the aspects of servicing that vertical. And I had been a CEO for 7 years prior to joining the MSP for a fintech company. We did some really specialized software as a service for mortgage servicing banks. And so we had grown that from about 2 banks to about 250 nationwide and had a great run over 7 years. We were super successful. But for a variety of reasons, mainly my wife and I wanted to move from Eastern Wisconsin back to where we'd met in La Crosse, Wisconsin. And this opportunity was there to do a growth scenario. And the owner was in his early 70s, wanted to sell this business in a few years. And there was a little bit of participation in that for me if we were successful. And so I took it on thinking the IT business can't be that tough. It's got to be about like every other business I've run. And at that point, I had run sales teams in the cellular industry. I'd gone back to law school. I had worked for Thomson Reuters for a bit. I had I've been CEO of this fintech company. And so had a pretty good background for growing a business and getting it acquired. But pretty quickly learned that the IT business is radically different than most other businesses. There's a lot of emotions in it that are just irrational, maybe. They just don't align with normal philosophies. And so I got there in 2010, in June of 2010, and that MSP was not a growth issue as much as it was a complete top to bottom fix everything issue. The service delivery had issues, everything had issues. And as a result, the business was doing in the previous 12 months, 2.2 million in revenue and losing $1.5 million. And so we did a lot of stuff. The first 3 months I was there were some of the best business management times of my career. I mean, I went in and looked at every single expense, everything we were doing. We made a lot of fundamental changes in the business model, and we were getting some traction. Unfortunately, though, as you guys know, when you aren't delivering good quality services to your clients, that leads to a lot of client attrition, and we were going through that, and that's tough to pivot from. Even once you start delivering better services, once a client feels like you're not a good service delivery company, they don't instantly notice things are better, right? You have to do better. If you did badly for months, you're going to have to do really well for months and months and have them really notice that things are better. They don't just notice it on their own. And so it took a while to get traction, but we were doing better. About 8 months in, I wasn't sure if this business even could deliver profitability. The MSP model back in 2011, as you guys will recall, was pretty new. Everybody was still figuring out what worked best. I'd go to events and there'd be a speaker talking about how the best way to go to market with managed services is to only include the tools, don't include any service time, and make every minute billable on managed services, but get them under a contract to call you on everything. And so basically it was a juiced up break fix model that a lot of folks were advocating. We were looking at all in and saying, man, is this even, with all the downside risk that all in presents, is this even a viable business? And are you going to get torched by your customers because you're providing all you can eat? And And so, you know, we were all just learning, what do we put into these things and what do we charge for them and how do we measure success? And what are the ways to look at the business? And fortunately, the spring of 2011, I was at a CompTIA event and sat next to Arlen Sorensen at lunch and started talking to Arlen. He being Arlen, wanted to know more about my business than he wanted to talk about his. So I told him, you know, kind of struggling. I'm not sure about this business model and everything. And he introduced me to the concept of benchmarking with service leadership and introduced me to the concept of joining a peer group. And so within a couple of quarters, we had made really significant changes in our go-to-market and our gross margin expectations and just everything we were doing in the business. And so we were able to do an acquisition in later in 2011. In 2012, we were profitable and we got acquired. We did two more acquisitions. We were acquired by a copier dealer, and those have had mixed results in the IT space. Some have gone well, some have not gone great. In our case, we were bought by just a fantastic owner and CEO who was really supportive of what we were doing and allowed us to just stay running as an independent business unit within the dealership. I went on to continue to run LockNet, which was the MSP, and took over as corporate counsel of the parent company. And so I was doing that. And in 2021, Service Leadership was acquired by ConnectWise and needed a successor to Paul Dipple, who had founded Service Leadership 20 years ago. And I knew Paul really well, and I knew some of the other folks within Service Leadership really well, and I knew the model, obviously. And so it was a pretty unique opportunity to use the skills I'd acquired over the years and help a whole bunch of partners try to get better, like it had done for us. I mean, I try to be humble, and I think I'm a pretty reflective guy. There's no doubt when I think back to 2010 and 2011 that if we wouldn't have discovered benchmarking and peer groups and gotten the help that we got for our business, that the owner, just knowing how events played out over the next few years, the owner would have pulled the plug on the business most likely. And so not only would all of our employees at the time have been out of work, including me, by the way, but also we went on to create hundreds of jobs, and that's really meaningful to me. The folks that we were able to elevate up and grow their careers. The guy who took over for me as president when I left in 2021, who's doing a wonderful job running that business, he was a sales rep for me when I got there in 2010, and within about 6 or 7 months saw something in him, made him VP of sales, and he continued to grow in his leadership and ultimately took over for me. And that kind of stuff's really, really fun to me. And so yeah, IT Nation being combined with Service Leadership in December. Manny Ravello, the new CEO of ConnectWise, pretty new. He's been here at this point about 5 or 6 months, but he saw the impact that the partner community was making, and he saw what a massive differentiator Service Leadership and IT Nation, both the events and Evolve, what a massive differentiator those are for ConnectWise. And so he wanted to put them together, make sure that we were directly reporting to him so he could support us and make sure we were getting what we needed to make these events and peer groups and benchmarking even more successful, and asked me to take it over. And so it was a huge honor to be asked. I have so much respect for the legacy of IT Nation, the events, the legacy of the peer groups, of what Arlen created 25 years ago, and also, of course, what Service Leadership has been doing all these years for partners since Paul created it 20 years ago. So it's really humbling, and I love what we do for partners all over the world.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah, I have one question just to unpack something real quick, and I have to because I've
Go
been
ahead,
wanting to
Sean.
say it to you. Going back to your MSP losing customers, getting and knowing you're going to lose something. Most owners, they literally will start to chase and cry, and they don't want to do it. It's a scary situation to know that you're going to revamp, right, and you're going to lose business. How do you justify that? How do you prepare for that?
I worked for a previous owner that when I was running the fintech company in the mortgage world. We also had a sister company that was a title insurance company. And when the mortgage market crashed in 2007 and 2008, we sat down to look at contingency plans for cuts we would make, what we would do to try to save the business because the market was crashing in front of us. And he had a saying in a meeting I remember vividly. And someday when I write a book, this will be the title of the book. But it was, Peter, a hangman's noose sharpens the mind and leads to rapid decision making. And so my book someday will be my business book will be a hangman's noose. But he's right. And so the situation, I got there in June of 2010. And understand, I left a really successful deal to move over there and did it based on thinking that the MSP was doing better than it was and just needed a little bit of tweaking here and there and needed to revamp its sales, go to market, and it would go off to the races. Well, pretty quickly found all these other issues, including we had at that point, I believe, 5 or 6 sales reps, and we had 1.5 FTEs in our support center. So imagine the experience that the customers were getting when they would call in for help, right? I mean, we had to just make a ton of quick changes. So we got rid of 2 or 3 reps, put those FTEs in the support center, ramped up service quality. But again, when customers have been through a really tough time for a while, it's tough for them to see the instant impact of that. And I had been there about maybe 2 or 3 weeks and was trying to get out and talk to as many of our customers as I could. And our largest 2 customers we had meetings scheduled with, this is about 2 or 3 weeks after I arrived. And understand, we're hemorrhaging cash. I had already had to start juggling some payables to make payroll. I mean, it was just a crazy experience for somebody coming from this really profitable, flush with cash business. And so going through this, and about 2 or 3 weeks in, we go to meet at 8:30 in the morning with our largest customer. And there were 2 sisters that own this company. So we go in, and when we were prepping for the meeting, I asked the sales rep, anything I should be expecting? What's this meeting going to be like? And Peter, they just want to meet the new president, and they just want to get to know you. They're our largest customer. And they're great. They've been with us for years. Everything's good. Okay. So I go there, take my head of service delivery with me, and we go in and meet with them. And the meeting is not going to be a good meeting when it starts off like this one did. The one sister who ran the company, we introduce each other, have a few pleasantries, and she goes, Peter, I don't usually use the F word in meetings, but I'm going to use it in this one. So get ready. That's how you know it's
That's a good start.
I love it.
And of course, by the end of that meeting, she had fired us, right? And like, okay, I tried to save the business and said, how about if will you give me 3 more months? And if we haven't turned things around in 3 months, then at that point, leave. And she said, I gave your predecessor 3 months a year ago. I said, okay, thank you very much. Have a nice day. We go to our next meeting, which is our next largest customer, and sit down with him. And he goes on to explain how we had made a mistake on their backup and deleted a full day's transactions, an entire Monday's worth of transactions from their system when we did a restore. And this was a 10 or 11 location insurance agency. So imagine how many transactions they had entered in the course of a full business day.
Right.
And basically said, if you don't fix this thing, we're out. And said, okay, thank you very much. get into the car, and I look over, and my sales rep and my head of service delivery just they just look like they just saw a ghost, and they're just shell shocked. And I'm like, guys, it's okay. We'll fix this. This is all fixable. And actually, it was really good, because in order to really make the kind of changes that we needed to make, there needs to be an awareness of your employees of the level of change that's needed. If they think everything's hunky dory, and you go back and say we got to change all of this stuff in a radical way, then you're not going to get buy-in, right? And instead, we went back, and as soon as our team all understood what had happened that morning, it woke everybody up. I had been saying for 2 or 3 weeks we had all these things that needed to be fixed. But it's one thing if I say them, it's another thing if these customers are telling us these things in great detail. And so it's impossible to deny it at that point. So that was the single best thing that could have happened to us. It was a terrible day. It was really bad for cash flow in the immediate months following, but it's also what was critical for us. That was a really pivotal day for us to turn things around.
So Peter, getting into this, how to appropriately structure and business process, I think that gets into one of the things we wanted to talk about today, which is Sleek. Let's start by you playing the decoder ring, right? I think most people listening have heard of SLI, heard of Sleek, don't know the difference necessarily or what they are or how to use them. So can you clear the fog for the audience on that?
Yeah. There's a lot of confusion because SLI gets used as the initials for the company itself. And it's technically correct. Service Leadership Inc. is the company's original name. So SLI. Service Leadership Index, also SLI, is the benchmarking platform. So the initials SLI were kind of Service Leadership's version of X for Elon Musk. It's like, I'm going to name everything X. We were going to name everything SLI, but and we actually have one more product that has SLI as initials, by the way, to make it even more confusing. But
We're here to help.
Today, when we refer to SLI, that's Service Leadership Index, also known as Service Leadership Benchmarking. That's the benchmarking platform. That's the product that Service Leadership was built on 20 years ago. Today, it's still our largest subscriber base. We have thousands of partners that subscribe, and they enter all of their financial data, their balance sheet, all of their revenue, their expenses, all of it into our system. And every quarter we run that data, and we tell them how they're doing, not only compared to themselves, but how are they doing compared to the most profitable companies in the industry, the best in class, top 25% most profitable companies. So they're able to look quickly and see what are the things they need to change in their business to get better results. But also, just as important, what are they doing well in their business today that they should keep doing well? It's not all negative. There's a lot. We show them what they're doing well, and so that really helps them understand what they should be doing to fix their business. But it doesn't tell them how to do it, and that's what Sleek is for. Sleek is SLIQ, but that's pronounced Sleek. A lot of people say Slick, but it's Sleek. Sleek is designed to assess their operational maturity level in 6 different functional areas of the business. So sales, compensation, service, security and compliance, financial. And so it's looking at all these areas of their business, and it takes about 4 to 5 hours to go through your initial assessment. But at the end, you've answered all these questions about how you're doing things in your business. At the end, it'll tell you, how are you doing compared to what you should be doing? And what are the things that you should improve in your business? And what priorities should you put those things at? Because you can't fix everything at once. You got to prioritize. And it provides hundreds of white papers and videos and tools and other resources to help tell you how to improve. So think of it like this. I'm chronically needing to lose a few pounds, and so I use this analogy a lot. it's like when I go to the doctor every year for my physical and they do blood test, and the doctor sits me down and says, well, you're good in cholesterol, bad cholesterol, you're a little high, but you're in range, good cholesterol, you're fine. And goes through all these things, blood pressure, and then gets to my weight and says, Peter, you're doing fine, but you could stand to lose 20, maybe truthfully 25. But and that's all.
Being honest is the only way you can actually acknowledge and address the problem.
That's
so
right.
I'm proud of you.
Yeah.
Never lie to your physician and never lie to your sleek assessment. So all that's fine. But if I leave the doctor and I go back to my exact same habits and I eat the same way and I exercise the same way and I don't change anything, a year from now, my results will be the same or maybe even a little bit worse, right? Well, it's the same thing with SLI and sleek. SLI is the blood test. It's telling me how am I doing, where am I at within the ranges, and where am I good, where do I need to improve. Sleek is telling me this is exactly what I should eat every day based on my metabolism. These are the exercises I should be doing based on the goals that I have. It's giving me this really prescriptive guidance on how to get better results. And it correlates. We know that operational maturity level correlates closely to profitability. On a scale of 1 to 5, bottom quartile profitable MSPs typically are about OML 2.8 or lower. Best in class are usually somewhere higher than 3.8, 3.9. So if I'm answering my questions honestly and I'm doing the heavy lifting, I'm going to be more profitable. I'm going to get better faster and have an easier business to run. So those two things are really designed to work hand in hand. And if you're a member of a peer group under IT Nation Evolve, which includes service leadership peer groups and Evolve 1, 2, 3, and 4 groups, if you're a member of any of those groups, actually most of those groups, so the Evolve 1 folks don't benchmark because most of them are still pretty small. But the rest of the Evolve groups all benchmark and they all use Sleek. So they're using that in their peer groups just like I used to. And we hold each other accountable. If you're doing the same stupid stuff and you're not fixing it in your business, other peer group members are going to tell you next quarter, what are you doing? Fix it. Let's go. Here's how you fix it. So yeah, I've been active in the Evolve and IT Nation communities for a long time as a partner, and last few years going in to speak to those groups and talk about benchmarking and Sleek and all of that. Sean's lip syncing, I think, Matt.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I muted because my dog was barking. So yes, I was lip syncing the song that I was playing right now. So about a year ago, you and I sat down. You went through like the benchmark and how it worked, and we started talking about the EBITDA. And me being part of a lot of startup businesses, it's a struggle, right? And when you put yourself there and using EBITDA as the true north, ultimately, yep. What I've always found with a lot of business, especially startups, EBITDA is not a factor yet. It's just pay the bills, right? So when's a good time to make that switch? Again, I understand that there's a maturity factor to this, but a lot of owners will say, well, we're good. I'm paying my bills and I have what I want. I bought a new boat. I'm good. But when is a good time to start looking at this as a legitimate business with EBITDA involved?
As soon as humanly possible. So the MSPs of all sizes, even the 1, 2, 3 employee guys, need to understand how to structure their chart of accounts. They need to understand how to book revenue correctly and how to book expenses correctly. These are fundamental concepts that will help them grow to 10 employees and then to 15 and 20. And the longer they wait to do those things, the harder it will get at some point to make those changes. So we have a chart of accounts that all of our benchmarking clients use called the NSP COA, which is the normalized solution provider chart of accounts. But it teaches them how they should be booking their expenses and how they should be booking their revenue and breaking things down so that they can really learn the difference in what drives gross margin and what should I be measuring on that. And how do I know if I'm delivering profitable services or not? Because having a little bit of cash left in your checkbook is not a good indication of success. You maybe you do, and maybe you are profitable, but you could be doing way better. How do you know, right? So
Mhm.
we actually are developing a product that'll be coming out this year for Service Leadership Index, our benchmarking platform, that will be called Benchmarking Essentials. And it's a product that's really designed for that sub-$1 million a year MSP, the smallest of the small. And there's a lot of those folks out there. It's probably 40-50% of the market, roughly. That's sub-million of revenue. So we really want them to learn, and we're condensing the inputs significantly. So you're, instead of, for example, entering in services revenue, breaking it down by managed service and project service and break fix, and other categories, there will be one category to enter all of your service revenue. Same thing with product. Instead of breaking out product by a bunch of different line items, there will be one category. So it'll probably be about 1/10 of the input, but it'll still teach you how to be looking at those different concepts, and it'll help you get going. And then as you grow as a business and get to a certain size, we'll be able to hit a switch and toggle you onto regular benchmarking, and all of your data will still be there. So those guys, to answer your question, Sean, I would start that concept of running your business the right way and doing your accounting the right way from day one.
Got it.
So, Peter, is this a vehicle, an avenue for the typical, right, E-Myth style business? Somebody who just hung up a shingle, technical person, doesn't really know business. Is this a way for them to start learning those concepts about how to actually run a business if they just decided to start up one day?
Absolutely, Matt. And I would say, I would tell every one of those owners, get into an Evolve group. Even Evolve 1's really designed for those folks, Evolve 1 and 2. So get into a group where you're going to be with a bunch of other folks who, just like you, started a business and are also trying to figure it out. And you're going to get a lot of that guidance, and you're going to essentially get an MBA and that kind of stuff early on. And if you don't proactively learn it, you will learn it the other way, which is not proactive, and that is school of hard knocks. And so you're going to, if you're starting an MSP and you're a one employee shop, even, you're going to learn these lessons. It's just a matter of, do you want to learn them the less painful way, or do you want to learn them the more painful way? You can skip a lot of pain and accelerate the growth of your business, and accelerate the delivery to customers, and all these things that are over time going to be important for you, and skip out on some of the negative stuff by really learning it from others, and learning who've done it, and learning it from the content that's available to help you. It's one of the really cool things about this community, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
industries I worked in before, we don't want to be in the same state as other companies that did what we did. We went to gone to an event and sat down and talked about from stage what we're doing that's working. There's no way. I don't want anybody to know what we were doing that was working other than our own employees. Coming into this industry and 15 years ago, and getting exposed to the channel and to the collaboration that goes on between providers, channel partners, and between TSPs is unbelievable. It's such a cool thing that we have going for us in this channel. It's one of the reasons I love being around IT Nation and the events and the peer group communities, is because there's such a tremendous go-giver mentality, and there's so much outreach and helping that other partners are doing for each other. It's awesome.
I like that. You're right as far as this is a great it's a great industry for the camaraderie of even competitors. The competition is real here.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's also one of the only industries that I've ever seen that we have co-managed IT, where literally you work with your competitor on a client together sometimes. And it happens. It's happened enough in this space that there's books written about it. So you're absolutely right. And a lot of us, Matt, myself, we grew up in this industry and part of the group. So,
Right.
and even going back to something too about this, whenever I sat down with you and we talked about the Central Mafia user group and I showed you the names of the advisory people, you're like, oh, I know them. I remember being with them 5 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really fun. Yeah. There's connections that I made. I remember one of the first connections I made, I went to an MSP University event back in Chicago the first month I was on board. And I went to it mainly to learn about the industry because I was brand new to it and trying to understand what's going on. And at the event, I met Len DiCostanzo, and Len and I had breakfast. My first morning, I was there the next day, and Len and I still are in touch. We do some stage time together at certain events, and so it's just really, really fun seeing how people are in different places. But it's really a small. The channel is small. It's a small world, and it's big, but yet it's small at the same time. There's so many relationships that get built, and it's a great place to be.
Agreed. And Lenny, yeah, Lenny's the man. Somehow he's immortal. He looks younger as he gets older.
Yeah, every time I see him, I think he's tanner and in better shape.
It's weird. I'm sort of, I hate on him because of that, because I look older and he looks better and I don't understand it. And then I get there all about how awesome his son is at baseball.
Yeah. No, Len's a great guy. So, and there's just so many relationships I've made over the years. It's an unbelievable place to be.
So I know we talked about a little bit ago, EBITDA being the thing that everyone looks at now, the golden metric of the industry. If you're just starting out, maybe you don't even really know what that is yet, or don't have the information to get that. What are a couple of things you can look at to have an idea of how you're doing as an organization that you may be able to get with the data you have now, right? Let's say all you have is your bank account balance, like we alluded to before. Is there anything useful you can get from that, or a small place to start?
Well, not so much from your bank account balance, but I would say
I guess positive is is good.
Yeah. Look, negative bank account balance would tell you something, but yeah, I would say, first of all, don't be intimidated by the concept of EBITDA. The reason why we use EBITDA, you got to use something, and in our industry, and so there's operating cash flow, there's net income, there's a lot of different measurements that folks use. In the MSP space, EBITDA works really well because it's not a capital intensive business. So unless you're in the shared services business where you have your own data center infrastructure and you're obviously depreciating a lot of that, unless you have that, it's a pretty good benchmark for how you're doing in terms of profitability for your business. Now, the argument that I'll get into with some is, well, yeah, but you're booking revenue based on when you bill the customer. You're not booking it based, so you could end up broke, but have positive EBITDA. And to play that out, the argument is, I've got a bunch of invoices out to my customers. They haven't paid them. I'm having to pay my service team and I'm having to pay my vendors. In the meantime, I can run out of cash. Very true. All of that is part of running a business. So you have to stay on top of your accounts receivable. You have to be really tight with your terms that you issue to your customers, because you're now the bank loaning your customers money. So all of those business principles are really important. It's not just about doing the technical work and sending out the invoice. Okay, so that's part of the argument. But assuming all else is equal and you've got normal collections on your accounts receivable and all of those things, EBITDA is a pretty good measurement. So to get back to what goes into EBITDA, it's gross margin minus expenses equals your profitability or your EBITDA. That's the very, very short version of the formula. So what goes into gross margin? Well, you have two categories of gross margin: product gross margin and service gross margin. Product gross margin is the easy one. It's the revenue that you're getting on the product minus the cost that you're having to pay to buy the product, right? So easy example, I'm selling a laptop for $1,000. I had to spend $800 to buy it from Dell or HP or whoever. I have $200 of product gross margin. Everybody gets that, right? That's the simple measurement. That would be 20% gross margin. Today, best in class is about 27%. So I could look at and say, on average, if I added up all my product, and product is non-recurring and recurring like cloud, if I add up all the product that I sell, look at what I got for revenue from all that product over a period of time, let's say over the month, and I add up my total cost of all that product and subtract it, what was my gross margin on that product? Okay, that's an easy way to know, how am I doing? Am I selling my product for enough? A lot of MSPs will give away product to get service, and that's a bad idea. You're leaving money on the table. Service gross margin's a little more complicated, but not much. I look at what I'm charging my customer to deliver service. So is that a project, and what was my total service labor that I billed them for? Is it a managed service where I'm delivering X amount per month? So look at the revenue, subtract my cost of goods to deliver that service. And that includes two inputs. It includes my labor cost for delivering the services, and it includes my cost of tools. So my RMM, my PSA, all of those things. Subtract that from what I'm charging, and that's my gross margin on the service. Service gross margin should average about 50%. Okay, so I add up my gross margin, I subtract my sales and marketing expenses and my what's called general and administrative, my G&A, and that's my rent, my cost of accounting, my cost of other things that I have to do to run the business, and that whatever's left over is my profit. Okay, so it's not enough for me to just make enough to cover my cost of product or service with my product or service. I also have to cover my sales and my G&A expense. And usually SG&A is about 30% minimum of gross margin. So I've got to be bringing in, if I'm only getting 25% average gross margin on my service and product, I'm probably losing money because my administrative overhead and my sales and marketing costs are not covered. Okay, so that sounds like a lot, but the formula is really pretty simple once you look at it on paper. And that's the kind of stuff an MSP owner, as they're growing their business, needs to really understand and apply to their business. A lot of times, what we'll see with an MSP that's been around for a while is when they go through to do what we call ABCD account analysis and look at the gross margin on each of their managed accounts, it's really common that the lowest profitability managed service accounts will be their longest tenured accounts. And the reason for that is a lot of times when they brought those accounts on, they didn't know what they were doing. Right? They didn't know how to price that offering, and they included all sorts of stuff that they shouldn't have. And so the accounts stay with them, and those owners stay loyal to those accounts because they were the ones that helped me build my business, right? Mm-hmm. At some point, you do need to go in and really fix the model with those guys too. But the fact that we so often see those accounts being upside down in profitability is indicative of how little the average MSP owner knows when they're starting off the business on how to do it right.
But I think something from what I heard you say, to simplify a person without the resources, without anything, to look at what their fixed cost is, which is if it's a product they know costs $1,000, if they want to have a margin of 25% on that, they should charge 20% over $1,000, right? That's something simple.
Yep.
The next piece is and the other part is the labor piece. So you average out your labor cost for the umpteen of the hours that you have for the person involved. If you know it costs that, then obviously you're trying to. So simple math is really taking the two numbers, putting them together, and adding 25% if you want 25%, or 30%, or whatever it is you want. Obviously, there's a lot of mud involved there, but fixed cost is everything from, you're paying your rent at your lease at your place is this much. The non-fixed cost is how many hours somebody will work, maybe.
Yeah, there's a lot that goes into the breaking that down, Sean. But often it's easy to ignore those little costs that you think of as administrative overhead it doesn't feel like they're a lot, but when you add them up, it adds up to a lot of cost. And so
Right.
you've got to price your offerings in a way that is built to make you money. And one of the things that's kind of interesting with MSPs, oftentimes MSP owners that I talk to, especially the ones that are under 10 employees, they feel guilty charging their customers more. There's this natural tendency to be really a helpful asset to those businesses, right? My job is to help you be successful as a business. I'm here to really save the day. There's this whole heroes concept that a lot of MSP leaders have and employees have. And I mean, that's great. That's noble. I get it. And from a service delivery standpoint, that makes sense. But from a profitability standpoint, you're not going to be able to save the day for anybody if you're bankrupt, right? And you need to be charging enough as a business that not only are you making money today, but you're going to be able to invest in your business. You're going to be able to grow it. And so you need to figure out what the maximum you can make on your business is and take advantage of it. And because competitors will come into the market, the business will change, customers will get acquired, and you go from one day having your biggest customers really feeding your business and you're doing well. Next day they were acquired and you need to figure out how to replace that customer. And there's all these challenges that come along. So maximize your profitability as a business. Don't feel bad about it. If you're good at what you do and you're delivering services well to your customers, they want to see you be around as well. And the best way to increase the odds of you being around is if you increase your profitability to the maximum level that you can.
No,
I
it's
love that.
a great point. I mean, Sean and I have talked about seeing businesses do this, vendors do this, right? There's almost this fear of charging too much what your service is worth, and it's hard to get over when you get started, right? The money conversation is difficult for someone making that technical to business jump at first.
Yeah, it's not the MSP model, the TSP model in general. It's not designed to be a non-for-profit. You might service non-for-profit, but you need your business to not be one.
Yeah.
So, and today in Q4, our data says about 18% of MSPs lost money. So that's unacceptable. There's no reason anybody should be losing money in this day and age. We're in the golden era of our product set. This is the last 4 to 5 years has been the time that everybody's been waiting for years and years and years. It's been the best few years ever for our industry. So if you're not seeing great results, and that includes obviously losing money, but it also includes making 1 or 2 or 3%. If that's where you are, you gotta fix it, and you can fix it. We know this. We see it all the time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So we're just about at the top of the hour. So Peter, we have time for one more question, and it's something that we ask everyone who comes on the show. And that is, if you could give our audience one habit that they should either establish or that they should break to improve their business, to improve the visibility into their business, what would that be? What should they do to get better?
I think I'm going to answer it a little bit globally and less specifically than you guys would probably like. But my answer is you should get information and get help, and you should ask for help from other partners. It's interesting to me. We think there's about 40 to 50,000 MSPs in North America alone. And at IT Nation last year, we had about 6,000 attendees. About 3,500 or so were MSPs. That means that about 35,000, about 90% of the MSPs were not there, right? And so even if you count in other events and add into the mix, we have this cadre of MSPs that are in peer groups. They're getting help. They're getting advice. They're being held accountable. They're going to IT Nation events, Connect and Secure, and our other Connects and all geos. There's all this advice available. There's all this help available, but yet most MSPs don't take advantage of it. It's crazy to me. why wouldn't you take advantage of it? And it's amazing to me in our industry. You can walk up to some of the most successful MSPs and you run into them at these events. You sit down to breakfast and say, hey, I have 8 employees. Here's what I'm struggling with. What would you suggest to me? And they'll help you. They'll tell you what to do. They've been through it. So I think my biggest bit of advice would be seek that advice out. Go out and ask for help, because there's a huge amount of people out there that are anxious to give you that advice, that love giving it, myself included. And take advantage of the content, learn. If I could follow that up with one more sub, that is actually take action on that advice. The difference between the bottom quartile and the best in class, in my experience, isn't that they don't always understand the difference. It's that the best in class made the decision at one point that we're sick of it. We're going to fix this business and do the tough things we need to do to fix it. So that would be the other thing, is just really take the time. And it's hard to do that. In an MSP, you're busy. You're working every day, taking tickets, and you're doing sales and paying the bills, all these different things that you're doing, especially as a small MSP. But you have to, regardless of size, carve out time to know what you're doing in your business that needs to be fixed, and to fix it. Just really dive in and commit to fixing it, and you will see better results.
All right. That was good. Honestly, you provide a lot of good information. I hope what we're going to do with this, which will be good, is as this comes out on social, we'll be putting out the little clips, because you have so much stuff that people should pay attention to. And so people are trying to grow their business should pay attention to that in general and watch the whole episode. But the clips will be good for it because they'll be educational. So thank you for that.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. It's always fun talking to you guys.
I know, right? It is actually fun. We'll be doing it all together at IT Nation Secure again. So
yes, it's going to be awesome.
Yeah.
Matt's baby. This is Matt's baby. We'll have to,
Yeah, get your registration and take advantage. Early bird. It's going to be. We've lowered the ticket prices to drive even more attendance to the event. Last year's was great. This is going to be even bigger.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So thank you, Peter, for being on. We appreciate it. Matt, any other final notes on this?
No, I think you guys covered it. This is another one of those episodes where we could literally chat all day about all of this. So, sign of a good episode that we ran out of time.
Well, we'll have to do it again, guys.
We will. Actually, I think it'd be a good idea at some point to bring you on with somebody like an Arlen or a Brad Scout to talk about one side, the business side, the other side of how the peer groups help somebody to get there. Because I think it's far too often that you see business owners that they isolate themselves and don't involve. And like you said, the school of hard knocks takes place then. So, and it's not even about being part of just Evolve, any peer group for that matter, just being amongst your own, just to get hopefully some bits of advice that can help you to grow. So, but we'll have to work on getting that together. So look out for that in the future. Otherwise, that is it for now from us. We will see you all on the next episode, and also at IT Nation Secure. Thank you all. Take care.